Hey, let's talk a little Lions now if we
Oh,
could.
yeah.
He is the senior writer and insider for DetroitLions.com, Tim Twentyman. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, Tim.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic today, bud. Hey, before we get into what's happening on the field, what in the world happened off of it? Lions get docked or something like that? An OTA day?
What'd they do?
What'd they do?
Yeah, they got docked in OTA day. You know, the rules in the off season, obviously it's no pads. You know, guys are wearing round shorts and a helmet. And, you know, the NFL Players Association takes pretty seriously periods that they deem maybe a little bit too much contact happen. And so I think that's kind of just what happened. The Lions got dinged with having a little bit too much contact in a non-padded practice. And so they got one OTA day taken away. Now, look, the vets are already gone. They left after a mandatory minicamp last week. So it was really just going to be some young players, maybe a couple vets that stuck around, rookies, going through really light, kind of short practices. So they'll you know, still have a couple of those this week. They'll have one open to us, the media, tomorrow. But that's, I think, essentially what happened. Maybe just a little bit too much contact that then is allowed here in the off season.
You know, I know you can't really take a lot from what happens at minicamp, but one of the things that I've always appreciated about this Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes-led team is you look up at SportsCenter, you look up at any one of the sports channels that are talking about the NFL, there's no drama. There's no holdouts. Nobody's waiting on a contract. Nobody's a malcontent. And I do think, Tim, that goes a long way in the success of an organization. Can you just speak to how smooth, knock on wood, everything has run so far up to this offseason, including the re-signing of the four Lions, really four Lions. They got their money and deservedly so.
Yeah, that was huge, you know, to re-sign Jared Goff, to you know, sign a contract extension with Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's your core.
Yep.
That's the key pieces to your football team. And so, you know, what I think that says, not only to your point about limiting drama and holdouts and everything else that comes with, you know, guys wanting a new contract, but I think that those are your best players. Those are the guys that come to work, put their head down, do the work, and have performed on the field. And what that does, I think it reverberates, throughout the locker room. I think it shows that this is an organization willing that if you come in, if you do your part, you put in the work, and you become a really good player, you'll make money. This team will sign you, and they'll sign you to record deals. And so, you know, not only does it limit just the hassle of the off season, of all the contract talks and guys holding out and everything else, but I think it just shows that, you know, this is a team that's willing to pay good young players who are part of this core. And I think, you know, that's not only going to be felt to the guys on this roster, but I think that's going to be felt to free agents too. This wanting to be a place to play, this being a place that will pay guys and take care of them. And so not only to what you talked about, but I think it has larger ramifications as well.
Hey, Tim, talk a little bit about a guy that everyone's talking about, and that's Jameson Williams right now. And it looks like he's really, I don't know, this is his coming out party is the way I want to describe it. What would you say about him?
Yeah, you know, he's looking in the spring. You know, he's going to be that number 2 guy. Josh Reynolds is gone, and so, you know, there's 64 targets that need to go somewhere else, and I think J-Mo's going to see a lot of them. You know, really, his rookie season was a redshirt year, you know, with the knee injury and everything else, and then obviously had a hamstring injury in camp last year, was suspended the first, you know, month of the season, but he really came on strong at the end of last year, and I kind of view this as like that second season, right, where young players usually take that biggest step from year 1 to year 2, like that's this year for J-Mo. You know, he's played in a lot of football games now. He's had some big moments. You look at San Francisco last year, and he's going to get an opportunity. And I think he's not just the guy that runs, you know, really fast deep anymore. I think he's really developed the whole route tree. We saw that this spring. Jared really feels comfortable with him. He made a lot of, you know, some tough catches over the middle, one over the shoulder along the sideline. He's going to be used in a lot of different ways, and this is certainly an opportunity for him to have a really big season as really the number 2 wide receiver in that room.
And you kind of just talked about it, Tim, but just how big is that for this young man to be part of the entire offseason operation? Like, there's no missed time, there's no weeks off, there's no little injury, there's no suspension, there's no nothing. He can participate fully in an off season. I have to imagine that helps him along as well.
Yeah, it's time on task and it's chemistry with your quarterback. That's what you get. And Jared talked about this a little bit. He's so fast and he's so quick out of his breaks that he had never played with a player like that. That you have to throw it a little bit different to him because he's so fast. I mean, you can put, on one hand, the guys that are in this league that are as fast as Jameson Williams. And so it's a little bit different. So just that time on task, those practice reps, that time with your quarterback. When's he going to come out of this break? Where do I have to put this? It's those little things that you build over time, and that's been so important with Jameson this offseason. He was at every practice. He had all those reps, and I would expect him to have a really big season.
Tim, are you comfortable? Let's just make you a Lion fan for a second. Are you comfortable with the receivers that they have now? Obviously, Saint and J-Mo side. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you got Khalif Raymond, who I know that Dan Campbell loves. Are they still shy one guy?
I think how I look at it when I and I like Khalif Raymond. That's a guy that is very underrated, and a guy, again, that Jared trusts. And Donovan Peoples-Jones has had experience, has made plays in this league. Well, how I view it is I look at it, well, what happens if something happens to St. Brown?
Right.
What happens if you're without St. Brown for a month? Then now what does that wide receiver room look like? And I think maybe you could use, one more kind of veteran guy who's done it. Wouldn't be surprised if someone is added before training camp starts. But you also have to think about this offense as a whole. And you've got to lump Sam Laporta into that mix as well. That's 121 targets last year.
Brock Wright.
Brock Wright. Even a Jahmyr Gibbs, who had 52 catches and 71 targets last year. They talked last week about expanding his role, maybe getting him in the slot a little bit, doing more than just being a dump-off guy. Let's see if we can get him in space down the field, intermediate parts of the field. So you have to factor in him as well. So if you look at the receiver room as a whole, maybe they could stand to add another guy. But if you then look at Gibbs and Laporta and some of the other weapons that they have, I think pass catchers as a whole, they're in a pretty good spot as long as they don't suffer any injuries.
I'll tell you, man, give me Jahmyr Gibbs. I swear to you, I mean this. I would take him over any running back in the NFL right now from what I saw from him last year. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. And to hear Louis Riddick speak about him tells me I'm right.
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's really explosive, and that was as a rookie,
Exactly.
And so he's so much more comfortable now. And if he becomes a big part of the pass game, I think they are very much going to use him like San Francisco uses Christian McCaffrey, being very much a part of the passing game. I mentioned it. He had, I think, 52 catches, 71 targets. I wouldn't be surprised if he's up over 75-plus catches and rushes for 1,000 yards. I think he's going to have, that kind of impact. He is one of those, dynamic players under 25. PFF did that.
Amazing.
Does that list every year of the, the top players under 25. The Lions had 20% of that list. 5 guys on that list, and he's one of them. So it certainly set up for It certainly set up for sustained success, and he's part of that.
Talking to Tim Twentyman, DetroitLions.com, senior writer, insider. Check him out there on that platform. Tim, I wanted to ask you, too, obviously the veterans are gone, and they'll come back for training camp next month, at the end of next month. But what about the rookies, and how quickly do these rookies assimilate to what the Lions want them to do to the NFL game? I mean, I know it's minicamp, and they're not out there hitting. Did the coaching staff single out anybody is coming along nicely, or is that all just too premature?
No, Terrion Arnold certainly is one of those guys.
Woo-hoo.
I mean, he was starting in minicamp opposite Carlton Davis with the first team. And look, he ended a drill with an interception off Jared Goff on the first day of minicamp. He's been really, really good. He got his hands on some other footballs. He certainly looks like he belongs. He didn't look out of place, and that's the biggest thing when I look at the spring. And you mentioned it without pads and everything else. Just does a guy fit? He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't slow down the operation, and he makes plays. And Terrion did that. I think, they're going to be a little bit slower with Enos Rakestraw. They got him playing inside. That's obviously a spot where Brian Branch is at right now. And then, some of the other guys, I think Sione Vaki has a chance to, be a core special teams guy, maybe get a little bit on offense. He showed great hands. And then, the defensive tackle out of LSU is going to be, part of that rotation, I think, up front too. A little bit different size, Wingo, quick first step. It'll be interesting to see him with pads because he offers something a little bit unique there. But when you look at the rookies, I think when you're talking about immediate impact and guys that can, make plays right away. Terry Arnold comes to mind. I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting opposite Carl Davis week 1 against the Rams.
Hey, Tim, this is KG on Sounds. Big fan of your work, by the way. And I saw some of the things you wrote on Jack Campbell. This is a player that a lot of people are expecting to take a next step. It looks like he's worked on some things in the coverage part of his game. How does Jack Campbell look, and what can we expect him to look like in the season?
Yeah, he is all about ball. That's the thing when I see Jack Campbell, when I talk to Jack Campbell, when I talk to others about Jack Campbell, the Lions have no worry about him because he is 100% committed to football. He's all about ball, and he got an off season now to, not have to deal with the underwear Olympics and the pre-draft process and everything else. He could just focus on football and focus on his body and focus on the things that he needs to improve on. And he's going to be, I think that guy right there, he's going to be that Mike guy. I wouldn't be surprised at all if him and Alex have 100 tackles. And the biggest part for him is he's got to improve the coverage part, like you talked about. I thought it was a great sign. He had 2 interceptions in minicamp. One, he baited Goff into a throw and stepped right in front of it. It was a really nice play by him. So if he can get better in that aspect of it, then you play more third down. Then you play more third and longs. Then you have some more opportunities to make big plays, right? Sacks, interceptions, and some of the big numbers in big plays that come with playing the linebacker position. But look, he is going to be just fine. He's a guy that this organization doesn't worry about. He does all the things right. He works, and he's going to step into that role. And I think he's going to be a linebacker for 10 years and a guy that annually gets about 100 tackles a year.
Hey, Timmy, how about Amik Robertson? What have you seen out of him? This is a guy I think that people are sleeping on. I believe that he's going to be a starter on this team.
Yeah, he was one of my 5 guys that impressed me in minicamp. He really gets his hands on footballs and competes. The guy's only 5'8", but
yeah.
you would, watching him and talking to him, you'd never know it. Watch him on a football field. I think one of the things he offers is obviously he can play inside, can play the nickel, but really he played his best ball in Las Vegas last year when he had to play outside. Played 10 games out there and played really, really well. And so here's a guy that gives you a little bit of versatility. He can play inside. You get an injury outside, he can pop out there too. He can play a really good nickel, so maybe that gives you some leeway with Brian Branch. Maybe he plays a little bit of safety in some packages and does some of those things. So he's tough. He plays much bigger than his size. He really fits what Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn want on defense. A really physical cornerback who doesn't mind coming up and hit you despite the size, and also gives you some versatility to play inside and outside.
Hey, Tim, I wanted to ask you, last week we were just talking about the Lions, and, there were a couple of media availability sessions for Dan Campbell, and I keep looking at this guy, and I'm like, what's his biggest problem? What's his biggest problem? What's his biggest problem going to be this year? Or what's his biggest challenge? And the thing that I came up with, I want to see what you think about it, is I think his biggest challenge this year will be to get to these guys or keep these guys going day by day, week by week, and not looking ahead. When you haven't won a division championship, when you haven't won a playoff game, when you haven't won a home playoff game, when you haven't done these things, it's a lot easier to stay on task. But when you have done those things, I feel like human nature would be to just look past all that stuff, automatically feel like that is where you will be next year and the year after that, and kind of let things slip through your fingers a little bit in terms of attention to detail and stuff like that. Now, I don't feel like that'll happen with this group, but if there is some area that I think is a level of concern to me, it's just not looking ahead. Just win the practice, win the day.
Yeah, don't assume you're going to be back, right? I mean, I'm sure Dan Marino thought that he would play in a Super Bowl again after getting there. What was his rookie year or second year?
His rookie year, yeah, right?
Yeah, his rookie year, and was never back. And I think that's kind of, been one of Dan's talking points this year. Is just don't assume we'll be back. You have to put in the work. You have to do the little things like you talked about every day of practice. We have to get a little bit better. What's the saying? If you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yep.
And those have been the messages here. It's don't ever assume anything. You have to earn it just like you did last year. Do we feel good about our chances? Is this the best roster we've had in a long time? Sure. Yes, it is. But you still have to go out there and perform, do the little things right. And I would be very, very surprised if this team didn't. with how close they got last year and how they felt that they gave that game away and didn't get an opportunity to finish it, I think this is a very hungry group, despite the first division title in 30 years and the first playoff win in 32 years and all the things that they accomplished last year. They felt that they had a Super Bowl winning team, and they let it slip through their hands, and they are determined not to let that happen again.
I hope you're right, man. Hey, I can't let you go without asking about the kicking game, and I hear good things about James Turner from Michigan. I know Money Badger's there. There's a guy who kicked for the Panthers, of course, and Jake Bates. What's the kicking game looking like going forward? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Turner actually has looked really good. He didn't miss a kick in minicamp, and booted one. I was standing under the goalpost. I think it was like 55 yards, and it went way over my head. It would have been good from 65. So he's got a strong leg. Can he do it consistently? Can you count on him for the 48, 40, 49, 44 yarders that you have to be money on in this league? It'll be interesting come training camp. We talked to Dave Phipp. He said Michael Badgley really worked hard to improve his leg strength a little bit. We saw in the first couple OTAs, he had a 60-yarder, and so there's a little bit of leg there. So it'll be a good competition. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that want to sign Bates just to get him into camp and see what they can do. We'll see if the Lions are part of that. But look, Badgley was really good at the end of the year. He was perfect in the playoffs, including a 54-yarder to help beat the Rams. So I think either way they go, they're going to feel pretty good about the fact that they've got a guy that they can trust to make some kicks, and either way, Dan's going to go for it a lot on fourth down anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
That's a fact, man. Hey, you're working alone there right now, unless you hire somebody pretty soon. Our own Mike O'Hara has left the building. I mean, nobody better than Mo. Wait, what was it?
Years.
Yeah, I mean, I know the guy real well. He's a friend of mine. What was it like working with him and learning under him?
It was great. I had the benefit of doing it at the Detroit News. I worked for the Detroit News for 8 years before I took this job, and obviously Mike was a longtime columnist at the News too before he came here. So pretty much my whole professional year, I've been able to work with and learn from a guy who's been doing it, for 46 years covering a beat. Like you said, he's one of the best in the business, and so I consider myself very, very fortunate to have been able to work with and learn from Mr. Mike O'Hara. And it'll be sad to see him go, but I'm sure he'll pop in from time to time at some Lions games and grace us all with his stories.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. He will grace us for sure. Hey, Tim, thanks so much for spending some time with us on a Monday. Really appreciate your insights, and we enjoy you on DetroitLions.com, and we invite everybody right now listening or watching us to head on over to DetroitLions.com. Great content on that platform. Thanks so much, Tim.
See you, Timmy.
Yeah, appreciate it anytime, guys.
You got it.
You, man.
The great Tim Twentyman.